Well, apparently I had my audio off. I'm sitting here talking to everybody and there was no audio on. These are the rookie mistakes of the YouTube webinar. So I don't know if Brian can hear me now. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Anybody here? Can you guys hear me? Brian, are you there? That's better. Okay, great. All right. So we'll wait just a couple minutes, see if anybody else joins. I don't know if Forbes, there's a message from Forbes in the chat, but I don't know if Forbes is still on. So Forbes, if you're there, give us a little note in the chat. He said he tuned in at 8:35 a.m. for some reason. Hey, there's Jen. Let's see who else is going to join here before we get going. All right. Well, we've got just so one person so far. Forbes is not on, and or if he's not paying attention, maybe he might have left that message for us earlier. So we'll just give it like maybe one more minute, 2 more minutes. See if anybody else joins up, and then we'll get started. So Jen, I don't know if you saw the Wednesday webinar or not, but I was just about to say that this is basically just a duplicate of that webinar. We are just trying to add a couple times so that people can join when they can and ask questions if they have them. So these broadcasts are getting posted to the channel, so people can always go in and watch them later, but we just want to make sure that if they have live questions, they can ask them there, because we don't always get notification of the comments and things in the comments section. So it's better if people ask them live. All right. Well, that's a couple more minutes, so we'll just go ahead and get started. Maybe Jen will be our target audience today. All right. So welcome everybody. For those of you who are watching after the fact, my name is Cameron Crum, and I'm one of the principals here and the developer of the software we're using. And I'm just going to briefly describe what we're going to do today. We're just taking a look at some of the features of the SignalQual and SelfQual portions of our software. And so if you're a BDC subscriber, you already get these. This is built into the software, and you don't pay extra for them. If you've paid us to do the filing, then this stuff all comes for free for at least 6 months. So each time you pay for the filing, it kind of renews your subscription to the software, and you get to use it again. And that includes the SelfQual, which is the portion that goes on your web page and allows your customers to qualify themselves off your web page, and it adds leads and things like that. So that's all going to be described in the webinar here. So that's basically what we're doing. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Let me see if I can find our videos here to put up, and we will get going with those. I'm just going to play some pre-recorded videos. All right. Hello and welcome to Regulatory Solutions. All right, I'm going to move this into the frame so that you guys can see it, and then we will start it up. My name is Cameron, and I'm going to be walking you through this quick demo today. This demo is really just to show off the profiling capabilities of the SignalQual program. And just so you know, the SignalQual program is available to you if you are a BDC subscriber, free of charge. It's part of the application, and you do get to use it for the 6 months following the period that you've paid for. So there's no extra charge for that. If you're just a regular SignalQual customer, all of this still applies, with the exception that when I show the fabric points in here, those fabric points aren't going to be there because we can't show those to you unless you have a license with CostQuest for your area. So we will be adding the national address database points instead for those. Just something to be aware of. I want to talk a little bit about how we do our propagation and how it's different from other programs. We do not do an area mode propagation. So I know a lot of people are used to seeing propagation maps that are big, nice colored blobs, pretty pictures on a map. And those might be useful if you're doing like broadcast technology or maybe mobile network design, but that's not what we're doing in this industry. For the fixed wireless industry, we're really just interested in certain points on the map. And so what we do is we go out and look at any individual point, and then we look at all the access points that could possibly cover that location. So I'm going to show you quickly what we do with this. So here's our access points. What we're showing is the just a kind of a pie-shaped representation of the access point at each location here and which direction they face. And these are based off of the beam width of the antenna. So they're kind of simplistic shapes, but they get the idea across pretty easily about which direction your antennas face and how wide that beam width is. Now, these are all uniform radius. These actually aren't kind of the coverage areas per se. This is just kind of a representation to show you where things are on the map. And they are color-coded by frequency. Now, if we look at the radius that was entered for these access points when they were put into the system, we can see this looks a lot different. So this is kind of the coverage extents of these and really the areas that we're primarily concerned with inside this main 3 dB point, or I guess a lot of these antennas now are 6 dB, but whatever the antenna manufacturer tells us is the beam width of that antenna. This is how we're creating these shapes. So what we do when we look at a point, let's go ahead and turn on some points so we can see that. We're turning on some fabric here. So at any given point in here, we would look at one of these and then look at every one of these overlapping shapes here. And actually we go beyond these shapes a little bit because we are using antenna patterns. So we are actually looking at anything within that pattern, right, that goes out to this radius. So this is just a real general, kind of representation to show you where these things are. So at any given point in here, we're going to look at every single one of these overlapping APs to see which one's the best server and also which ones can service it, even if they're not the best server, or maybe they can't service it. And then you can tell why they wouldn't be able to service it. And the way we rank those is really it's based on several criteria. We do prioritize license band over non-license band. After those bands, we go to throughput because that's obviously the most important thing for an ISP. And after throughput, we go to signal. And then after signal, we go to distance. And so there's kind of a hierarchy of how we qualify a given point. Let's go ahead and turn these off so it's not so busy. And let's just go ahead and just kind of randomly click on one of these and run a qualification and see what that looks like. So just before we do that, I did want to point out a couple of things on the map. We do have some new tools up here. We have this simple mode, and in simple mode, we're only going to show the profiles that do qualify to that location. So if nothing qualifies, it's going to pop up an alert telling us nothing qualified, and that if we want to see all the profiles, we need to be in advanced mode. So I'm going to turn off the layer control just so we have some more room to work with here. And then let's hit qualify. It does take a second because we are actually going out and rerunning each one of these profiles. We don't store these. We do actually rerun them every time you click on one. And this one, we got fortunate because there's actually 3 sites that do qualify, or 3 APs that do qualify to this location. Let's go ahead and turn off this so we can see what that looks like. I've also actually set the map so that it won't show the qualify APs, but if you turn this on, you can see the representation again of those APs that do cover this and how they overlap. It does get a little busy, so I'm going to turn them off. One other thing to note that these lines that represent the profiles on the map, they are solid if they are qualified, and they are dashed if they do not qualify. Obviously, in simple mode, we're only ever going to see solid lines on the map. If we looked at the advanced mode, which we will in just a minute, you'll see that there probably are some dashed ones as well. Now, the other thing to note here is that on the left side, this gray window pops up for the AP that we consider is the best server for this location. And that right now is because this AP is in the 3665 megahertz. So that's what they consider licensed or licensed by rule, possibly category. So we said, okay, if any of those qualify, we're going to make them the best server. Now, if we look at these other ones, here's another one. This one is in 2 gigahertz. So obviously this one's probably crowded as far as frequency goes. It does service this still, but not quite as well as this one, obviously. And also it's not licensed. And then if we look at this green one here, we can see that it's also, actually that's, I think, the one that we are looking at for, yes, that's the same one. And then let's look at this brown one and see what it looked like. So it's also an LTE site. It's just further away, so the signal's a little bit lower, but it would also qualify to this location. Now, a couple of things over here on our map, on the profiles. As you move your mouse along the profile, you can see where this is on the map. And so if we zoom in just a little bit here, you can see this crosshair. So as we move along here, this crosshair moves along. And if you were to show something like your aerial hybrid, you can see exactly where that clutter is. You could also turn on the clutter layer to see where that is as well, what's in the path. So that's what we have. Now, if we look at if we do the same thing again in the advanced mode, let me go ahead and cancel this. And then let's just pick this again. I think that's the same side. If not, it's pretty close. So here you can see we're looking at all the points or all the APs that possibly can service this instead of just the ones that qualify. And you can see here that we have some dashed lines now. And then we also have some that are dashed and solid, so are double dashed. They kind of look more like a double dashed from the ones that serviced before. And that's because we have APs that from this tower that service this, and also ones that do not qualify that are still within the beam width of these antennas. So if we look at this and see why it didn't, so the brown part didn't qualify here, and that's because it is 5 gigahertz and it just didn't meet the signal criteria. So we had to be below neg 70 to reach their throughput tiers that they've set up for this, and it was only neg 73. So that was higher, of course, than neg 70, so it did not qualify. So if we want to look at one of these other ones, we can see what happened here. And actually, because we clicked on the map and there's actually an overlay there that's hidden, it's showing us all the things that are possibly there at that location. But if we do just click on the profile, it will show us this profile and all the statistics from there to see why it didn't qualify. And again, this one's at neg 105, did not meet his criteria for throughput, so we did not qualify to that one. Okay, now that we've seen that, let's go ahead and cancel this. The other thing we want to just show real quick is the ability to qualify any point on the map, not just a location that's in either the Fabric or National Address Database or something. And that is through this tool that's Qualify Site to Point. And what this will allow us to do is set our CPE elevation, and then we can click anywhere on the map. So we're just going to click a point at random here, and we're going to wait for it to go out and do the analysis from all the towers that are around that could possibly service this location. And here we are. Since we're in advanced mode, we're seeing all the ones that didn't qualify again, but here's a link that did qualify. And so if we look at this, we can see how it did. So this one is an LTE site that only has to hit neg 90. We were at neg 77, and so this one did qualify. So that's just another way to be able to qualify things on the map. So if you were just looking at buildings, say in an aerial hybrid view, and you wanted to see if they qualify, you could just come down here, for instance, and click on a rooftop. And we'll wait for the qualification to come through. And here we go. Yes, we can service this person. There is a solid link here. And if we put this in simple mode and do it again, maybe let's just see if this house here will qualify. then we get 2 that will qualify to that house there. One other thing I want to show you is our building database. This is something that's new to the program. And we're just going to pick something at random in here so we can see if we can get a qualification. And we can. But one of the things I wanted to show you was our new building database. So we have acquired a building database that's basically 2-foot resolution buildings, and that includes the elevation. So it's very interesting to see along this path. You can see these little spikes in the built up category here, these little red spikes, and those are the buildings. So if we just try to get close to one, I know that this is a longer link, so it's harder to tell, but certainly we can see that there's a building right there along this path. And then as we go along, there's another building right there. And you can see that those are built up along the way. So the difference here is that prior to this, there was just one category for urban or built up, and it included everything: streets, parking lots, buildings, everything. So it was really difficult to set an elevation for that category because we didn't want to create giant walls out of streets or giant blocks out of parking lots and things like that. So if you said, well, most of my buildings downtown are average, 30 feet or 40 feet or something like that, well, guess what? All your streets and parking lots are going to be 30 feet and 40 feet. So it was really difficult to get an accurate clutter, loss reading for these areas. But now with a building database, we can flatten out that category, just set it to 0 and rely on the buildings here in the building database to provide that elevation when we encounter those objects. So it's much more accurate, and we believe it's actually better than using LiDAR data, because LiDAR data sees everything as an obstruction, a solid part of the terrain. And that's really not that great. If you're just trying to get pure line of sight, okay, fine. But if you're really trying to determine where the obstructions are and you don't want to see your trees and things like that as solid obstructions, then you really do need just a terrain database and then a clutter database and ultimately a building database also to get the most accurate representation of what's really there. So that's why we believe that this is a little bit better than using LiDAR data, especially most of the companies that are out there doing it right now only use the first echo return, which does present everything as being a solid object. And that pretty much concludes our demo for how we're doing our profiling. Hopefully that's helped you out and explained things a little bit. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so that was our video on the regular, SignalQual portion. One thing we did want to add, and that we kind of forgot to put into the video that I think a lot of people are interested in, is how to do this. So I'll do this in a live instance here. So you can actually look up any address as well. And so you can come in here and let's just type, I think this was like something like Jefferson. Let me go ahead and zoom in on this street. I'll cancel this. And oh yeah, it's Old Jefferson Road. Let's just try to do the same one. So you'll notice as we type this, we get suggestions, and this is the same thing we use in our SelfQual program that we're going to show you here in just a little bit. So basically, this is just giving us address suggestions from the Bing Maps API. And just so you know, we chose Bing because it can actually find a lot more addresses than Google, and especially in rural areas, we find that Bing does a much better job, and they have better placement also of the points. So Google will oftentimes put it in the street in front of the house, where Bing will try to drop it right on the house. So let's go ahead and so here's our point. Let me cancel this again. And then when you see this point pop up on the map, you can click it, and then there's a qualify button here. So this just runs the same qualification profiles that you saw in the demo we just played in the video. And you can see it's showing the AP and the line. And again, if it was more than one, that would get kind of busy. I like to turn these off myself just so I see just the lines and not the shapes. And so you can see this one qualified. And then of course, same thing as we saw in the video. If you really wanted to see all the stats, you just click on the line and open it up. And there you go. So we could also turn on our advanced mode if you really want to see if there's any other sites that potentially could hit this. You certainly could. So we'll just do this again and see. Yep, there, it looked at actually 5 APs here. And so you can see why some of them didn't qualify. This one has a terrain obstruction in the 60% Fresnel zone and lots of trees on the end. And I think this is the one that did qualify. So there's lots of information here. Obviously, this is an LTE, and that's why we chose it. It looks like there's also a 5 gigahertz link from this tower that might also be pretty good. Although the signal's a little bit low, probably doesn't meet their threshold for installing it. And then these other ones probably just had too much loss in the trees. So this is a 2 gigahertz, but it only came in at 138, neg 138, so that's pretty low. And this one was neg 89, so again, pretty low at 2 gigahertz. Probably not going to work very well. So you can get the idea here. You can do lots of other analysis or see what other ones might have qualified by putting it in advanced mode. So with that, I don't know if we have any questions before we move on to, I'm looking at our question list here and I don't see anything popping up. But if you do, please just type away and we'll try to answer them as soon as we can when we're done with this. And so I'm going to go ahead and get the next video ready here, and then we'll start it up. Going to move it into the frame, I think. Yep, here we go. Okay, I think everybody can see that, and we'll just go ahead and start playing. So once again, this is the what we call the SelfQual portion. So this is a piece that you can put on your web page and allow people to qualify themselves, and this will explain how you would do that. Hello and welcome to Regulatory Solutions. This demo is going to walk you through the features of SelfQual, and what SelfQual is basically just a form and a map that you can drop into your web page that allows customers to come in and self-qualify. And this works the same way that the qualification does in our regular SignalQual program, where it will go out and look at every access point in your network that could possibly qualify the given location and determine which one is the best one for that. The other benefit of using this is that this form will tie into one of many billing systems and actually input into your billing system the new lead with an account number. And it will also add a note into that as to which AP is the best if we determine that one is the best. Also, this form can be styled however you want. This is basically just the simple styling that we have for it. Once you get this template, you can drop this into your page and change how the form looks, how the web page looks, of course, anything around it. It's just a simple CSS page that you can use to adjust, or you can apply your own CSS if you already have forms on your website. So this can be completely customized. You don't have to use this format. This is just our templated format for you to either drop in if you want to make it easy, or put it in an iframe if you want, or you can tear it apart and put it in however you want. The only thing we ask is that you don't change the JavaScript, because that's how it communicates with our system and then goes and puts things into the billing systems. So the billing systems we currently support are Visp, PowerCode, Sonar, Splinx, and UISP. And so any of those we can drop customers into or leads into. And then this form also sends you an email every time we get a result. So let's go ahead and just put something in here. I'm just going to put, this is actually a working one. And I'm just going to put test to make sure they know it's a test. And we're going to go ahead and put in, let's see, 3750 Mountain View. Of course, if I can spell. Here, now I can just select it. And once you select an address, it's going to drop it right on top of the house. If it's not quite where you want it, you can actually move this dot around a little bit. So I can say, oh, well, I really want to check to see if it's on this peak of the roof right here. And if you have an apartment or suite, you can put that in. I'm just going to put in my own information here, just so we have something there. And I'm just going to put this as a test, so everybody knows this is a test. And then we're just going to hit check for service. Once this checks for service, it's going to let us know. And so there's an alert that pops up. Now you can modify this if you want to do something other than set an alert, if you want to add your own congratulations or send them to a different page. Whatever you want to do, you can change that within the JavaScript yourself. Right now, it just says, good news, it appears we can likely service your location with speeds up to 50 by 10. And that's because we look at the access point and we know the speed tiers. And so we're actually looking those speeds up and we can report that to them. So then you say, okay. And what this should do is take you to another page. We don't have it doing that just for the demo purposes, but this can take you to another page. It can, if you want to build an application that allows them to go ahead and sign up if they were able to get service. Some people have asked about potentially scheduling. That's all up to you if you want to build that around our form. But just to let you know, it did do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at the email. I should have received an email. And sure enough, here it is. And hopefully this isn't too small for you to see. Maybe if I reduce my screen size here, it will help to expand it on the video as well. So you can see this says Cameron test lead added through the web page, and it's sending it to whoever was the people that needed to get it. And it has your name, your address, the coordinates, the phone number, email, the notes that they submitted, right? It's going to say submitted from whatever your site is. And then it's the note that was submitted as well. And then the qualified results. It was served. The best AP is this one. And the speeds they can get from that are these speeds right here. Now, if it did put it into a billing system, in this case, this customer does not have a billing system set up to put it in. It will also tell you the account number that was inserted into that billing system. Also, one more feature, there is a map link here. If you click that, it will just take you basically to Google Maps and let you see it on this map. So if you have a CSR who's looking at these emails or something like that, they can definitely look at this and see where it is. And that might help them to get something scheduled or whatnot. So that is pretty much what SelfQual is all about. If you have any questions on this, please feel free to reach out and ask. Okay, so that was SelfQual, and I don't know if we have any questions on that, but I can certainly answer those if we do. And those are basically the nice RF features we have built into the software. So if you're using, once again, the BDC, this all comes free of charge for you if you're paying us to do your BDC. And if not, SelfQual or SignalQual, along with SelfQual, comes together, is available, and it's pretty inexpensive, $79 a month right now. So pretty inexpensive. We don't have extra fees for things. You basically just get to use the program as much as you want, unlimited users, unlimited APs, that kind of thing. So just to let you know that that's available if you're not a BDC subscriber. So if we don't have any questions from any of the viewers, I know we only have a couple, so I think most of the people checked in on Wednesday, but if we don't have those, then we're probably just going to say have a good day and